Welcome to the Automotive Diagnostic Podcast. We're going to explore ways to sharpen our diagnostic skills, find learning resources, and hear from experts in the automotive field. Hey, what's going on, automotive world? Welcome to another episode of the Automotive Diagnostic Podcast. My name is Sean Tipping, and I'll be your host once again for this week's episode. Joining me on the show this week is Julio Alves. Julio is a shop owner out in Maryland, and he's joining me to talk about his journey in the automotive world. Coming over here from Brazil as a kid with his parents, working in his dad's shop growing up, becoming an airline pilot, and owning his own shop where he's been a pioneer in some of the cutting edge stuff that's out there. So I enjoyed this talk quite a bit and getting to meet Julio. It was awesome. I think you'll enjoy it as well. With that out of the way, let's jump into the episode.
Kids not to pop.
They definitely will be then. That's how that works. Dad. Yeah. How many kids you got?
2 girls.
Oh, awesome.
2 girls, 3 dogs, and a hamster. Fish are almost gone.
You have a full house.
Yeah, and my dad's in town for a couple of months. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. How the cars treating you lately? How's business?
You know, man, business is good. The automotive industry is usually up and down, but we're always busy. We're in an area that's fairly busy. You know, just outside DC, in between DC and Baltimore, right next to Fort Meade. So it's always busy. You know, okay. It's never not busy, to be honest with you. And the automotive industry is a great industry, to be honest with you.
Yeah, if you like work, you're in the right place. It's never ending.
Yep. Things are changing fast, though, man, and I feel bad for a lot of shops. You know, there's a lot of shops in our area that, you know, there's good people. You know, have good intentions.
Yes.
But it's sad, and I feel bad. What
yeah.
are you gonna do?
I 100% agree with that. You know, so many of the shops I go to, like the people that are there, they're honest, they're hardworking, they're doing the best they can. But yeah, they're, you know, limited in one way or another for one reason or another. And man, it is these cars and what's coming at them with technology and what you need to be service ready is crazy.
It's changing just super, super fast, man. I mean, one way or the other, I've always been in the automotive industry. My dad, you know, owned a shop and grew up in a shop. So, and I just remember how it was back when he was working on cars. Like, it was so easy to make money back then, you know, because there was nothing to it. And now there's just so much to it. And it's, you know, to be well equipped, lots of overhead, you know, to employ the right people, to have the right equipment. It just takes so much to make money. And then you got a lot of these shops that don't invest and then run into problems because they shouldn't have been taking on that kind of job. But, you know, again, they're just a lot of people trying to make a living, but it's like, it's tough, man. And then they come to us wanting help, you know, because they've gotten themselves in a jam, and then we quote them something or price them out something, and then they're like, oh, there's nothing you can do. I was like, I'm sorry, man. It's just, you know, I can't not get you out of a jam and put myself in a jam.
Yeah. Well, and you know, you're the one making the investment on the training and the equipment. And once you've done that, you're like, oh, okay, it costs this much. I have to charge this much to have this even make sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I've discovered that myself with certain tooling that's, you know, on the higher end of the price scale. Like, you can't do that stuff for cheap. You can't, you know, cut people a deal on this because, you know, whatever I buy, like if I go buy Flex, like they're not cutting me a deal when I buy it. So it's
no, absolutely not. It's brutal, and people have a hard time understanding that.
Yeah. So talking in the group chats, there were several people in there that really wanted to hear your story of how you came to be where you're at in the automotive industry. And I'm interested too. I don't know much about you. So I don't know where you want to start, but I'm interested to hear You're from Brazil originally, right? Is that
Yeah,
correct?
I was born in Brazil. Yeah, from Brazil.
Okay.
Family from Brazil. Actually, my daughters are first generation Americans. Yep.
Okay.
My brother's kid, he's actually Brazilian because my brother moved back to Brazil some time ago to look after the family farm, and his kid was actually born there. So my kids are actually from our family, the first generation Americans.
Okay.
Yeah, but I was born in Brazil. I mean, but I'm more American than Brazilian. You know, I came over here when I was 5 years old, and I'm almost getting into my 40s. I'm 38 now, so I'm way more American than I am Brazilian.
Do you remember prior to 5 being in Brazil?
You know, there's some memories that stick around, but we go back as often as we can. Like I said, my family has a farm down there. My parents actually live down there, but they come and go back and forth, often. Like I said, my dad's here now. Um, and a couple years ago, my daughter got sick, so they were up here for a good while we're going through that. But yeah, everything started in Brazil, man. And my dad's always been in the automotive field there, and I grew up in a shop there, so it's just always been in the blood.
Okay. How's it? Is it the same, different down there for the automotive world, or?
You know, I really don't know how it is down there in the automotive world. I know that like in the big cities, they've got some smart people, man. I know like Brandon Steckler and I think Scott Schotten were down there recently for an automotive
That's right.
event, which I thought was really cool because I really didn't know that they had those down there and stuff like that. And I know there's a couple people from down there that do come up here for the automotive training events. But they are, man. They stay on top of their game, but it's hard because everything is super expensive down there. Equipment is hard to get. They don't have
Mm,
access to everything like we do. Information, tooling, equipment it's all harder to get.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've talked to some people like in Australia and stuff like that where it's same thing where it's just like they don't have access to the stuff that they're willing to spend the money to have the equipment, but they can't get it, and so they're having to figure out ways around stuff. And
Yeah,
um,
they are. They're industrious because I mean they come up with a lot of clever stuff, man.
yeah,
Like where my family's from, they're in a real rural part of Brazil. I mean, in the middle of nowhere. So they gotta figure stuff out.
sure,
And I asked my dad, how do you guys do this? How do guys down there do this, do that? They're like, oh man, it's brutal. And what's interesting is that down there in the automotive industry, I think it's still like this. There's automotive electricians. So there's a facility that just does electronics, and then there's the facility that just does AC, and
okay,
then there's the general automotive mechanic that does R&R stuff. So it's still kind of separated. Um, but I know there are shops that are kind of just bringing all that into one roof, under one roof, like it kind of is here.
okay, yeah. I mean, it's not a terrible thought to divide up and specialize a little bit with today's vehicles. You might be more successful.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, it's a whole other ball game down there. A whole bunch of different cars and emissions laws that are totally different. But it's at the end of the day, it's all still kind of the same thing.
So you moved here with your parents when you were 5.
Yep.
What were they coming here for? Did they have jobs lined up? Were they looking for stuff? What was the
I think
situation?
they were chasing the American dream.
Okay.
Back then it was still a dream that was very attainable. So we came in 1990. We first arrived in Orlando. I
Okay.
think we first came just we stopped by the parks, of course, in 1990. We did the park thing, and then you're in that community of Brazilians. You go here, go there, and then you end up finding out, oh, there's Maryland outside of DC. Go there because there's work, there's people, there's a community. So one way or the other, we ended up here, and my dad got on board with I really don't remember, but it was an Asian gentleman who hired him and really liked my dad. My dad's always been a great like a mechanic guy. Like he can hear something. Oh, it's this. He's just a great.
Sure. He's got that aptitude.
Yeah, he's just a great mechanic.
Okay.
And they just loved it. The guy who hired him loved him. And back then he was on flat rate. He really didn't like my dad on flat rate because my dad moved really fast. So, But he hired my dad, and he sponsored my dad to for citizenship here for his green card for permanent
Okay.
residency. And then back then it was a lot simpler. It was a lot easier. So my dad, we were able to get our green card relatively quickly, and then it just kind of snowballed from there. Then my dad ended up opening his own shop, and then kind of got partnered. Not really partnered. There was this wholesaler that really liked the way my dad worked. So my dad worked very closely with him, did a lot for him, and it just took off.
Okay.
My dad did really, really well for himself. Speaking very, very little English at the time, and my dad's English is still as broken, but he did extremely well for himself. I mean, put two kids through school. He built himself a life and a retirement in Brazil. Um, he just did really, really well. And we're extremely, like I said, America ended up becoming home for me and my brother, and we're more Americans than anything. So we've just really embraced the American culture.
That's cool. I like to hear that, there's somebody it works hard and is rewarded for it. I like to
Yeah.
see that. Um, so then his shop was that in Maryland? Is that
Yeah, it was in Maryland.
okay?
It's
Eh,
actually only from where my current shop is. It's like probably less than a mile. To be honest with you.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
And then, so you worked with him in the shop while you're growing up, or
Yeah. So as I was growing up, always been, man. Ever since we were kids, we can remember. When we were in elementary school, we were really looking forward to summer vacation. Always, and my dad was like, wake up, let's go to the shop. So we always went to the shop every summer break. My brother and I, we always went. And we always spent every summer at the shop. So, I mean, we really enjoyed it because he had this big open field. So it's me and my brother. We were like 6, 7 years old. Not 6, 7 years old. We were older than this already. Probably in our, 8, 9, 10 as those years went by going through school. And we were always in those cars and just driving around these junkers that my dad had in his lot, just making all kinds of trouble. But it was,
yeah,
it was a great time. So we always learned. We were always in that environment, and it was always great, man.
yeah, that's cool. I didn't really like grow up around cars. I was always kind of in the garage or tinkering with something. But my family, or they just like, my parents were insurance agents, right? So
Yeah.
we had a car, and it wasn't until I got my license that's when I like went headfirst into everything. I took every auto class I could in high school and got into it that way. But that would have been really cool to grow up, just as a little kid, seeing the stuff. That would have been really interesting to experience.
Yeah, it was great, man. I wouldn't have done it any other way. Always from Brazil. My dad had a shop, and they still have a few pictures of me. I remember, riding around. They always, I was always in a little tricycle riding around the shop, and it just, I think
Nice.
it really never left. Uh, Always been in this environment, man.
Okay. Where'd you take it from there?
So, again, growing up, going through high school, even in high school, man, we live about 30 minutes away from where the shop is, and that's where my dad's shop was also just about 30 minutes. And every day after high school, as soon as I got my license, I would go to work with my dad. I'd drive from high school, go to shop, stay there. But when I was when I was about 13 years old, so my dad started taking flying lessons because he's always wanted to learn how to fly. And I would go and backseat his lessons with him, and I really enjoyed it. So then when I was 13, I started taking flying lessons. And then, I did my first solo. I mean, it was slowly because I was still young. I did a few lessons here and there, but when I was 15, I did my first solo. Um, when I was able to get my private's license, I got my private's license. And then I started doing, my instrument license, be able to fly in the clouds. It's called instrument flight rules.
Okay.
It's more regulated flying. Um, so then I kind of was like torn between, automotive and aviation. I really liked flying. I really liked that. So when I was around like 18 years old, I finished high school 1 year earlier because I hated school. So I did night school and summer school. I wanted to get out of
Let's
high
get
school as
done.
soon as possible. Yeah, I did like a year and a half of auto tech at a local community college, and in this time period, I was kind of bouncing aviation and automotive. Um, and I was like, you know what? I think I want to try aviation. I want to do it. And then, Florida is like Aviation Central in the USA. Lots of flight schools down there. They're solely dedicated to aviation. Actually, the flight school that I went to down in Florida was owned by Delta Airlines at the time.
Okay.
Yeah. So I went there, finished all my ratings in about all the remaining of my ratings in about 10 months. Then I came back up here, in between that downtime of having finished aviation, after finishing all my licenses. Then I got hired with them to be an instructor in Houston, Texas.
Okay.
So with this company, it's called Delta Connection Academy. So I got hired as an instructor with them, went out, worked in Houston for maybe a year, at this time. But before all that, man, before I even went to Florida, I went to Florida when I was like 18 years old.
Yeah.
I was already engaged. I got engaged with my wife. So
Okay.
we got, she was essentially my high school sweetheart. Before I left, we got engaged. Then I came back, stayed here, got hired, and went to Houston, stayed there for about a year. And we were already married. And like every weekend, I was traveling back and forth, DC, Houston, DC, Houston. I was just getting exhausted. I was like, all
Sure.
right. So I quit that instructor's job, and kind of like they had a gateway into the Delta family if you stayed with them.
Oh,
But aviation in that time period was extremely, extremely hard, man. It was brutal. But I was like, forget it. I'm exhausted doing this back and forth. Newly married, wanted to start a family. Came back to DC, and I got hired doing flying traffic here in the DC area, and also had a flight instructor's job here in the local flight school in DC. And I also worked for my dad.
what does that mean, flying traffic?
So with a reporter that was near me, it was by my side. So we'd leave like
Oh,
five
for the
o'clock
news.
for the
Okay.
news. Yeah, for like
Okay.
your local
Gotcha.
news station, for your local radio station. So I would fly around with a reporter for like 4 hours in the morning, all through DC and Virginia, just going around in circles, following roads. It was the most boringest thing ever, man. But in
Gotcha.
that time, building hours was incredible, because I would build hours really, really fast,
Mm.
uh, which was good for my aviation career. So I did that for a while, and then I got hired by a little airline called Big Sky Airlines. They were out of Montana.
Uh-huh.
Myself and a buddy of mine, we both got hired together. We went through aviation school together in Florida. We both interviewed together. We got hired by the Big Sky Airlines. We were flying like turboprops out of Billington, Montana. It was wild. It was wild, man. It was
How
some
big?
real
How big of a plane is that? I don't
19
know
seat.
anything.
It's a 19-seater turboprop airplane. It was
Okay.
the funnest plane I've ever flown.
Okay.
No autopilot, no GPS, no nothing. And you're flying and out of there. You do these little airports. A lot of country folk, but people up there got money, man. Some
Okay.
deep pockets in that part of the world. So I stayed flying around there for a bit, and then they were kind of subcontracted to fly for Delta, oddly enough, out of Boston. So then I got transferred to Boston. I flew out of Boston doing, local routes with this airline. And then this airline was kind of going under, and I jumped ship. I got hired with another airline. They were called Air Wisconsin. They flew for U.S. Airways Express.
Okay.
I had a buddy who was working there. So he got me a job interview with them. I got hired, and I flew with them for I'd say about 3 years. And they were based right out of DC. So it was good for me because I didn't have to commute to work or anything like that. So I was, right out of Reagan. I only lived like 30 minutes away from the DC airport. So I worked with them for about 3 years. And it got to a point where, like I said, the aviation industry is brutal, man. That's a whole nother conversation we can go into. But just so you realize, the first airline I flew for, Big Sky Airlines, I made less than $30,000 a year.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's a brutal industry to start
Huh.
and kind of put your time in. It is extremely hard. If you can hack it and you can make your way through, you're rewarded at the end. There's good pay, end up having good time off, good seniority, because everything's seniority based in the aviation industry.
Okay.
But it was just really weighing down on me. Lots of life aspects. My first daughter was just born. I was just having a really hard time, being away from family. I'm a very family oriented person, so that really weighed down. And then one day I was just like, you know what, man, it's not worth it. I wanted to be with my kids. My dad and mom were always a very, very central part of my life, and I think they did a pretty good job of raising me. I was
Yeah.
like, I definitely want to be a part of my kids' life.
Hmm.
So I was like, it's not worth it. It's time to give it up. It wasn't working out the way I wanted to work out. And I gave up aviation and went back to working for my dad. But my dad was kind of at that point where, he kind of wanted to slow down. And I was thinking of opening up my own shop. And I was talking to my wife, and, she really wanted me to kind of do my own thing. And then I, stupidly enough, if you want to ask somebody how not to start a business, come talk to me. Because I did everything the wrong way, man. I mean, I went, it was all in, huge shop equipment. I just did everything wrong. I
Okay.
didn't, I
Okay.
didn't, I didn't build up to like the shop I had. I just went all in, was broke for a good portion of my life there, and had to claw my way out of every kind of hole that I dug myself into. But it ended up working out, man. I mean, we suffered there for a bit.
Yeah.
We struggled, but everything kind of just worked out. Shop super busy. We kind of made a reputation for ourselves. So we've been very blessed. Can't complain about that.
That's cool. I got a number of questions. First one,
hmm
I didn't realize you could start flying so young. You said 13 when you started?
Yeah, I started when I was 13. I'll be honest with you, a lot has changed in aviation
Okay.
and aviation regulations.
I can tell you
Um,
I would not be suitable to fly a plane when I was 13. I would have
yeah, well,
crashed that thing so fast.
but it's funny because a lot of guys in the automotive industry kind of go towards aviation. A lot of them want to do like flying lessons and all that. It's kind of interesting. Which the more you start talking to people, the more you start seeing people's Facebook profiles. Everybody's got some sort of like aviation thing. It's just funny. I don't know. It's two industries that kind of go hand in hand because there's a couple other shop owners that I know that were also pilots. I think Dutch was a pilot, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken. Yeah. So there's a few guys out there. It's weird.
I,
Small world.
I used to love flying when I was younger and like into my teenage years. And I went skydiving one time and that was really cool. And for whatever reason, as I've gotten older, I like it less and less. And I think it's because of the automotive world. I think it's because when I'm listening to every motor and hydraulic thing going on that plane, I'm like, what's that? Well, what if that breaks? What if the circuit comes open? What if this comes loose? And that's all I'm
Yeah.
thinking about the whole time on a plane. But
Yeah. But when you're going through flight training, man, and you realize how much redundancy there is, on planes and how well things are and how regulated everything is. Of course, there's always stuff that falls through the cracks, and it's unfortunate because when it does happen, it's catastrophic. But how well these machines are built, man, how the care that's put into them, the designing, and again the redundancy. It's amazing, to be honest with you.
did you ever have anything happen while you were in the air? Anything scary or close calls or anything like that?
No, like maintenance, like any sort of failure or anything. No, it's kind of funny because when you're in the cockpit, we're always joking. Sometimes you'd see like a random, caution light would come on, like a yellow light would come on. First thing we do is just stop, look at it, and see if it go away on its own. It goes away on its own, then we're all good. No, but thank goodness, in all my time of flying, I've never had any issues. Tons of, but when I first got hired on like I said, Air Wisconsin, when I was flying in and out of DC, the regional jets that everybody hates flying in. Like as soon as I got out of new hire training, one of my friends who was also in the same class that we were, like his first week flying, one of his engines failed.
Oh,
Yeah. But I mean, again, man, it's when you're in training for aviation, that's all you're doing in the sims is just emergencies and emergencies and emergencies. You're not in the sim training like this is how this flight is going to go from A to B and everything goes. No, no. As soon as you jump in the simulators, it's just failure after failure after failure. So the pilots very well trained in the U.S. It's amazing. So I mean, they can handle it fairly well.
sure. Yeah, they know exactly what to do
Yeah,
when
it
there
just
is an
becomes like
issue.
muscle memory. Yeah, the pilots that are in those cockpits and fly those things, everything's just like muscle memory for them. When
Uh,
stuff goes wrong, it's quite impressive.
that's
But
pretty
no,
cool. I saw it was there's like a cornfield a little ways from my place, and then beyond that there's like an airport thing, and they'd there would be a plane that would take off, and it was towing another plane behind it, which was just a glider. I
Yeah, it's a
assume because
glider.
had no engines on it at all. So they'd go up, they'd spin around, then let it loose, and then
Yeah.
it come down. I was like, oh my gosh, that would be wild to be in that thing.
Those guys are nuts. Those guys are crazy. Yeah, the gliders are interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I sat there and watched it for about 3 hours one day, just going up and gliding down, and it's completely silent. Obviously, there's no motors or anything, but
Yeah, it's amazing. It's an amazing like industry, man. It's a great hobby. Again, it's an expensive hobby for those who have it as a hobby. My
sure.
dream is to one day own my own little plane. But when you say little plane, you think something cheap, but like there is no cheap in aviation, man.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
It's crazy, but that is my dream one day to have my own plane and do my own thing. I was fortunate enough a few years ago to ferry a plane. It was a twin engine Beechcraft Baron, which is like a 6-seater twin engine piston plane from here all the way to Brazil.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so that was a wild time. That was a good experience. It was fun.
So I imagine you're making stops along the way, or how's that work?
Yeah, yeah. So I left from here from Maryland, flew down to Florida, and then from Florida, I left the plane there for about a week, came back home where we're getting paperwork and stuff set up, and then myself and one other guy who was familiar with the route and doing all the paperwork, he went with me, and I think we took off from Fort Lauderdale. Our first stop was in the Dominican Republic, and then we flew to St. Martin for the night. So we stayed there night one, and then from St. Martin. We went to Grenada, and then we got held up in Grenada because of weather. So we stayed there for the night, and then from Grenada we went to French Guiana.
Okay.
And from French Guiana, we went to crossed over into Brazil, into I can't even remember what city it was in Brazil. We landed in. Um, I think we made a straight shot all the way to Manaus, which is like a city, kind of central northern Brazil. And then we stayed there for the night. I'm pretty sure it was, I can't remember if it was Manaus or not. If we had one city before that, I think we did have one city before that we actually made our entrance into Brazil. I have to go back and check. And then from there, from Manaus, went all the way down south, actually to my home birth city. And that's where we stayed for the night, and then flew back into some farm towns because there was some rich guy who was going to be he does like gold mining and stuff down there and farming and all that stuff. He bought the plane.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, it was a wild time. And I'll tell you what, it's a lot scarier flying over the Amazon jungle than it is any open water.
I suppose, yeah. You don't want to crash there. Oh man.
Dude, it's like endless green. All you see is this sea of green. All you see is the treetops, and if you're going down, you're dead.
Wow. Wow. That's wild. Well, from that to fixing cars, huh?
Yeah, man. So then I left aviation. I said open my own shop, and we just grew. Was fortunate enough to have some very good employees who a few of them are still with me today. It's been almost 13 years who are still with me, and through the years, just I was always had the mentality that I never wanted to ship. I never wanted something to leave my roof.
Uh-huh.
I never wanted to sublet anything out. I never wanted to send something out. And then I got kind of mixed in with a very large national, used car dealership that they're very close to us. I was fortunate enough to get introduced with, a manager there who kind of, we just built a relationship, and they feed us a lot of work. And, then they asked this question, can you do this? Because I really wanted to just focus on the European stuff.
Okay.
So I kind of equipped myself for European stuff, and then they sent over one vehicle. It's like, oh, can you do this? And I remember the first vehicle they sent me was like a Tahoe, I think, with something with the rear HVAC that wasn't working. And they had replaced a bunch of parts, and ended up being some broken wire somewhere. and we got it fixed, and they were happy. And then, it's just one thing led to another. And they're like, oh, can you do this? Can you do this? And, at that time, I had gotten into the whole programming game very, very early. Very early.
Like what year?
Man, as soon as I opened my shop, which was in 2010, I
Okay.
was already programming, BMW stuff, Volkswagen, Audi. 'Cause I got Otis very, very soon. I got Otis quickly, and it was super, man. Everything nowadays, you look at it right now, everything's so easy to get. Back then it was hard to get, man. Getting Otis and getting all that paperwork filled out and jumping through all the hoops you had to jump through. It was hard, man. It took weeks and weeks and weeks,
Yeah.
just to know who to contact and where to go and what to get. Um, but anyway, so I got into the whole programming game very early, and that was it was hard, man, because I didn't know of all these groups and all this automotive groups that we all have today. I don't even know if they were around back then, and all
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
support and all the Keith Perkins of the world who have all these programming classes available. I mean, there's so much stuff available that at least back then I was nowhere. I had no idea about the amount of pain and suffering I went through for programming Nissans and Infinities and all these vehicles, and just I don't know if you can curse on here or not, but it was
Yeah,
a
go
lot of
for it.
it was a lot of fucking around and finding out.
Hit that button, something's gonna happen.
Yeah, it was just a lot of that. I mean, it was super hard. So I started early with the programming game, and then, oh, can you do this? Can you do that? So, I went outside of the European world, which, if I look back at it, I really don't know if I would have done it again, because the amount of overhead and keeping up all the equipment, because our shop has pretty much like 90% of all the OE tooling, all the factory tooling. It's a lot of money, man, and it's a
Hmm.
lot of headaches and a lot of upkeep and just making yourself, keeping yourself up to date, and you know, working your way through all the tools. All the manufacturers have a different way of doing things, and just you know
Yeah.
what it's about.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, but nowadays you got all these groups and these guys who are like have the same mindset you do, and look at the industry the same way you do, and kind of pretty much have gone through what you've gone through. And if you haven't seen something, they've seen something. It's life. Well, at least now for me, it's like it's so much easier. Like I said, I don't know if it was around back then or not, but people who are getting into this game now, very fortunate.
Yeah. I mean, there was ITN and stuff like that back then, but I don't think there was anything for programming close to what is available for people now. So the people like you that were doing it outside the dealership at that time were pioneers for the aftermarket in that respect. But yeah, now there's so much out there. You just got to go search for it, right? Like if you want to figure this stuff out, go search. And I mean, yeah, there is still some stuff where you're just like, okay, well, we're gonna hit this button and see what happens.
Yeah.
Because I can't find anybody else who's tried this used module and this whatever I'm trying to do. But it is so good to have some people to reach out to too in
Oh,
a
it is.
network.
It's amazing, man. I remember when I first got Consult for Nissan, Consult 3. I got Consult 3 because I got burned by NERS. It's NERS, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I got burned by NERS where I ended up breaking an ECM. And I didn't know how to recover those. I wasn't as knowledgeable as I was now. I didn't know how to recover those. And when you eat $1,000 ECM, you're like, motherfucker, you're
Hmm.
just pissed off. I was like, nope, I'm buying Consult, make life easier. I won't have to worry about breaking an ECM because NERS ends up failing or something like that. And then I had like my first TCM to program for a Nissan, and the file location for this vehicle for me to place the transmission programming file, I had no idea where it is, and it wasn't in the PDF instruction. When you purchase
Yeah.
the software for the TCM in the PDF, the instructions say for just for one sort of transmission it was, I can't remember, but anyway, this file had to go in a specific location because when you would start programming, it wouldn't see the file. I had no idea where to place that file. I had no idea what to do, and the majority of the manufacturers back then didn't have a tech support number for the aftermarket like they do now. So I
Right.
was calling like these any phone number I can find for Nissan, like I would go into the website for assist, like that homepage. I would find a contact number. I'd call it up. I was like, please, for the love of God, help me. And then finally, somebody called me back, and this guy's on the other line, and it sounds like he's at home, and he was nice enough to like remote in, who worked for Nissan, and kind of showed me where the file path was to place that file. But I mean, it was a lot of that, man, a lot of suffering through a lot of these manufacturers and finding out how to figure stuff out. It was brutal.
Now, I'm sure that that was tough to work through, but do you think, looking back on it, it helped you grow more as far as your knowledge around those systems, struggling through it?
Absolutely. In the beginning, absolutely, all the suffering, I don't think I'd have done it another way, because that's really how you learn. The majority of our learning is going to, you learn how to swim when you get thrown into the water,
Yeah.
So I tell my guys sometimes, they come and ask me for opinion. I was like, dude, I don't know. Try it out. I don't know everything. I was like, let's find out what happens.
Uh-huh.
Let's read service info. If service info doesn't have it, 'cause some of these manufacturers lack on information, we've got to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we see vehicles that have already been to the dealer, or they couldn't figure it out and they've already given up. They said, no, we can't, we don't want to deal with it. Have been somewhere, and people are coming to us to try to figure it out. We got to try to figure it out, and the suffering portion of it, we look back at all the headaches, but I think it's a headache that we're all kind of addicted to.
Mm-hmm.
It's something we're addicted to, the challenge. And then when you see it work and then it goes through, or something is successful, you're victorious. I think I think our group of people, in this automotive industry, are really kind of addicted to that. It kind of becomes a high when you become successful, in winning through a challenge. It's very exciting. I still love it.
Oh yeah, I completely agree. It's a majority of the reason why I do what I do and still take on Diagnosis Mobile is because I enjoy that. I want that little bit of a challenge. I don't want it to wreck my day, but yeah. I want that challenge. And hey, if it does wreck my day and I can actually work through it, it's worth it in the moment. Like, the victory is nice too, but then the next time you're dealing with that system or that car, that problem, something similar, and you blast through it because you got your ass kicked last time, and you remember all of these different things, like, okay, there's got to be voltage here. Nope, the computer does this when this happens. And like, you just know that stuff because you spent 8 hours getting your butt kicked by something, that's where I see it being worth it. And so the next time I'm like kind of getting frustrated with something, I'm like, just push through it, because it's going to be worth it on the other side of this if you get through this frustration. So, but these cars will humble you. That is. Oh,
they will, man. It's and like I said, what's available for resources nowadays is amazing.
Yep.
Like I said, back then I was programming BMWs with AutoLogic's Blue Box, and went through so much pain and suffering with that, until I found LMV with Seth, and got hooked up with them, and then got ISTA, and once you start getting factory tooling, there's no way to go back,
Right.
And then everything's available, and then all the resources that are available to you, people like Justin Morgan in this industry who are absolutely amazing, and it's just wild. The amount of, like I said, I said back then, none of that was there. And now it's all these smart people that it's amazing the resources that we have.
Yeah. And, I'm sure there were just as clever people out there 20, 30 years ago. I know there was, but the way that we're able to connect and interact so seamlessly has been such a powerful thing for me in the last few years in this career. Like, I would be so much farther behind where I'm at now. Just even not even just fixing the cars, but like the business side of things.
Yeah.
Talking to other people, like, oh, here's how I do this. Oh, I ran into this. I have that same challenge that you're dealing with, with your customers, your shops or whatever. This is what I do, and it works really well. And so you're kind of able to add things from everybody, and hopefully I can participate and add something for them too. But, man, it's so valuable.
It is. I mean, I'll be honest, it's the only reason why I have social media is because of the automotive industry. That's the only reason I have Facebook and I'm on Messenger and all that, or else I'd have thrown it out a long time ago.
Same here, man. Exact same.
Yeah.
So how big is your shop? How many bays you got? How many techs?
So the building is a big building. We're like in a warehouse complex. So the shop size is about 21,000 square feet. We've got, I think, 11 bays, if I'm not
Okay.
mistaken. I've got 8, 9, I think 10 two-post lifts, one big old 24,000 pound 4-post lift. Then we got an alignment rack, on our alignment rack, and then we have our ADOS corner. We just do ADOS stuff. Um, and then I lost one guy a few weeks ago who went to another shop. His buddy opened a shop. He said he went to go help him, so we're down one. Well, we lost one technician. So right now, including myself, we got 9 techs.
Okay. Nice. I was actually talking to Daryl this morning. He texted me, said, "Hey, Julio's gonna be on the podcast."
I told him, before we left for work, at the afternoon, he was like, "Oh, so you ready for your podcast?" I was like, "Man, I'm nervous as shit." I was like, "I'm trying to figure out an excuse to call Sean and say, hey, Sean, we got a
He said to bring up Seinfeld. He said you like Seinfeld. So
it's funny because I have a TV on the wall and he has a TV on the wall that we supposedly use as like second monitors, but every once in a while we'll just leave Seinfeld playing around in the background or leave some movie, in the background. So we just do Seinfeld quotes all day. We have Seinfeld.
That's awesome. And you guys do a little bit of everything. You're into board work and stuff like that too, right?
Yeah, so I got into. I'm trying to figure out how I got into board work. I can't even remember, man. I can't remember what led me into that. I can't remember.
It's usually one car that necessitates like, oh, we have to do this somehow. How do I do that? What's this little chip?
Yeah, and I can't remember. But I remember like my first time I was intrigued with like board work was I was much younger. I was at my dad's shop, and we ended up losing a key to a Lexus RX. And back then, you know how all keys lost are in them Toyotas. You go to an ECM. We're like, God damn it. We ended up, at my dad's shop, lost keys, and then we called this locksmith that we knew, and he came out there, and he was all very secretive. You know how locksmiths are, Yep. And me I was just a kid, I was asking, I was like, hey, what'd you do? And he was like, oh, I went into the ECM and, there's some things that we can do and blah, blah. He didn't tell me anything, just like locksmiths are all secretive.
Yeah.
And I was like, holy crap, what did he do? But back then, there wasn't Google like there is now, or, the research that you can do to find out what he did. So I remember that was like something key, and it always stayed in the back of my mind. I was like, how did he do that?
Yeah.
And as time progressed, you get into these groups, and then you join one Facebook group, join another Facebook group with these guys, and then I can't remember. And then I did like this with what the hell is that key group called? They always have key training, and I did one online. It was during COVID, because during COVID we were just kind of sitting around for the first couple weeks in the shop, not doing anything. So I was doing a bunch of online training, and one of them had this locksmith stuff, was like board level stuff, and I did that class. It was actually an ACDP class.
Okay.
I took that. I was like, man, this is kind of interesting, and then it just took off from there, realizing how much you can do and how much you can actually, save and not just throw away all these components,
Sure. Yeah.
It's wild. So I really, really enjoy that side of the industry. I think it's probably my favorite thing right now, doing like board stuff and keys and stuff like that. It's really enjoyable for me.
Yeah, same here. I think of all of the areas that I cover at the moment, that is my favorite at the moment, is when I can, do some board level stuff, learn some things, be successful with it. Yeah, whether it's cloning a module, fixing a module, adding keys, like that stuff is it. I'm drawn to it. Just like yeah. I want to do more. So sometimes I like get ahead of myself because I'm like, oh yeah, we can clone this, or we can do this, and then it's like, or you could just use SPS, like, yeah, okay, but yeah, I've enjoyed that quite a bit in the last couple of years.
Yeah, it's a great side of the industry. I really like it because again, it's that challenge, trying to figure out what to do or what not to do, and being victorious at the end. I think it's very satisfying.
Yeah. Well, that's an area too. Pedro and Mike have definitely opened up possibilities with their classes and stuff, but that's like an area where, hey, when something goes wrong, when you have an issue or you don't know what you're doing, like there's no tech support line you can
Yeah.
call when you're trying to clone a PCM. But again, the network of people is where that's going to help. And there's some education out there now. But that one's kind of the Wild West, because I run into it a lot where, hey, nobody's ever tried a used blank and a blank. Like you may be the first one to attempt that. How does it work? What do you have to do? Well, start trying and see what happens. You're probably going to break something, but
Yeah.
you got to
No,
give it a shot.
yeah. I have, unfortunately, I haven't been fortunate enough to do a class with with Pedro Mike. I was supposed to. Um, it was just like after, not after COVID. It was kind of during the COVID time, but it was supposed to be at Brandon's shop down in Carolinas. Um, and he was going to be hosting a class down there, but I had to back out, cancel the last minute because my daughter got sick. So he was gracious enough to let me cancel and kind of refund my money and everything. But yeah, that was supposed to be my first like e-prom class. I think it was supposed to be that one, but I never had the chance.
Okay. Are you guys doing ADAS work at the shop too?
A lot, man.
Okay.
A lot, a lot. I mean, at the beginning we were hesitant, because again, my wife's a partner of mine in the business, and I was telling her, we were like, man, I think we need to jump on this. She was like, oh, but it's such a big investment, and
Hmm.
I was like, but I don't know, man. I can see all these cars are gonna have these things, and they're gonna be mandated to have a lot of these safety features. I was like, I think we need to get on this wagon now, not be late to the party, and let's jump on it. So I jumped in it, invested a whole lot of money. And of course, you put in all this money and then you don't see anything for a good while. When you're still getting your foot in the door, and people are still finding out you can do all this. But every day, man, it seems like there's a car coming in. I don't know what these shops are going to do. It's like, again, I feel bad for these shops that are that are out there that really don't keep up.
Hmm.
I mean, it's like a bumper comes off or something gets done. What you need to do. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Well, I'm glad
So
to
yeah,
hear
Daryl does a lot of ADOS. I hate doing it.
you don't enjoy the work.
I do not enjoy ADOS stuff at all.
Yeah, I was always kind of that way with physical alignments. Like, it was good money at Firestone, but I didn't really enjoy doing them. And I'm in the Rust Belt too, so that didn't make it any fun. Every single
Yeah.
tie rod, it's gonna you get the torch out. But I'm glad to hear you put it that way, because I had just bought my ADAS kit. Well, about a month and a half ago, and I've been trying to get my name out there to some body shops. I'm like, hey, I do this stuff now, and I offer these calibrations, and I've only done a handful of them so far. I'm just like, oh, come on, I want some more of this work, but I'm gonna keep working on it, and hopefully
Yeah.
eventually it'll come.
It'll come, man. It'll come. That's how it was for us. I mean, just some stuff never showed up, and now it's like all the time. Get stuff from the local Makos, which is freaking brutal.
Mm.
You're doing these blind spot sensors on like Toyotas and stuff like that, and they come in and they're all one side straight, one side's at an angle, and it's brutal. These body shops are crazy. Some of the stuff that you see come out of body shops is wild. It's wild, but no, just keep at it with the ADOS stuff, man, because it will come. That's how it was for us. Really slow in the beginning, but now it's like all the time,
Okay.
all the time.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and just a lot of guys don't understand. I have a big issue with a lot of the windshield companies, because I battle a lot of the windshield companies, because again, these windshield companies provide service to a lot of the local dealerships, and then they say they do the calibrations and stuff, and then you have issues with some of these vehicles that come over, and then you see a windshield placement, it's all crooked, and then you're asking them, I was like, how did you do these calibrations? How did you do this? And they really can't answer certain questions. Then when we go back and talk to the customer who actually brought us the vehicle, I was like, hey, you guys got to understand what we're dealing with here and the importance. I don't think you guys are grasping, the importance of ADOS and the amount of liability that we have here.
Yeah.
You guys selling the vehicle and us repairing the vehicle, and you guys just handing it off to these companies who say they've calibrated. But then when I ask them, I asked their technician, I was like, hey, did you guys do this and this and this? They're like, huh? I was like, yeah, service manual, this. When you guys replaced the windshield, was it within these tolerances or this kind of specification? And these guys just stare at you with a blank face. And they're like, man, we just do what our managers tell us to do. I was
Mm.
like, you need to go back to your manager and tell them to be careful. You guys need access to information because what you guys are doing is not a proper service to the customer. When something happens, somebody's going to get in trouble.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so a lot of these guys that come to us don't understand or think it's going to be something quick and inexpensive, and then we got to go through the whole spiel and kind of sell them the whole process. Like, no, we will cross every T and dot every I to make sure that everything is in accordance with what we need to do. Because if something does go wrong, I want to make sure that what we did was proper.
Do you have documentation of the whole process too? Like, is there pictures of the setup, or how do you do that?
So Daryl, I mean, like I said, when we go through it, he documents everything. So our shop management system, we use TechMetric, and we take a lot of pictures.
Okay.
We take a lot of pictures of everything that we do, and so we do document the whole process. Reports, the scans, the befores, the afters, pictures, what it looks like. So we do a lot of documentation. Whenever somebody replaces, windshields and things like that, when manufacturers recommend OE glass and they're using aftermarket, we'll document it. Customer used aftermarket glass, things like that. So yeah, we try to do as much as we can.
Gotcha. Yeah, I've been big on that lately. I mean, just for the programming and diag work that I do, but as I'm getting into ADAS too, I'm trying to really like have everything documented of what I did, how I did it, so that in case there's something down the road, there's questions. Yeah, it's not just my word. It's here's what I actually did on the car, and that's. I mean, it's definitely helped me out a few times with the programming side of things too, because it's one of those things where like the customer doesn't necessarily see it, whether it be the shop or the owner of the vehicle in my case, but like they're not seeing what's changing. How do they know I actually did anything or whatever? So having the screenshots has been key for me because it's got me out of a couple binds. So definitely important.
Yeah. Again, just I guess educating the customer. 'Cause like I said, sometimes we get these dealerships that we do a lot of work for. They'll come up, oh, why is it cost this much? And then once you kind of pull out a service manual for them and kind of read everything, and all the prerequisites and what needs to be done, all the preliminary work that needs to be done, and you kind of teach them and tell them like, hey, this is what we have to do to make sure that the vehicle that you're selling or the vehicle you're giving back to your customer is safe.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about a system that can actively take control of the vehicle or break the vehicle or kind of bring you back into the center of a lane when you're going 60 miles an hour. That's not something I really want to be cutting corners on. And it's kind of scary, man, because a lot of these big chain windshield companies are just cutting corners.
Yeah. I mean, for somebody who doesn't have a background on the auto side of things, you probably don't have quite the understanding of how integrated all these systems are. It's not just a camera in the windshield, tied into your brakes and your steering and all that stuff too. What do you think the next new thing is? What are you going to hop on early for next?
Man, I don't know. I mean, the automotive industry is changing freaking quickly.
Yeah, there does seem to be something new every day.
It's something new every day, now with the whole EV stuff.
Do you do a lot of that or hybrid stuff?
We started seeing, a lot of the EV stuff. Not a lot. I mean, we see some here and there. We see hybrid. I mean, I wouldn't say we see a whole bunch of it, but it comes on a regular basis. It's funny enough. We got a Fusion in the shop right now that we replaced the engine on. And when it came in, the high voltage battery. I can't remember what percentage it was at, but anyway, we put this used engine in that the extended warranty company auzed, and here we are cranking to get it to start, and the high voltage battery starts to run low on charge, and the charge is completely depleted. Now there's no cranking it, and then I don't have a rescue charger, so we send it to Ford to get them to get it charged back up, because technically the battery's still in warranty. So I was like, oh, just send it to them, see if they'll get it back up. The vehicle sat there. The vehicle sat there for 2 weeks. They didn't even touch it. I was like, God damn it, what am I going to do? I need to get this vehicle out of here. So then I was looking for a rescue charger, and I found one on eBay. It was the Ford Midtronics one, and I couldn't pass it up. It was cheap enough, It was $6,000 new. This one
Okay.
was like about $1,000. I was like, I'll buy it.
Oh,
So I
dang.
bought it.
I got to get
I bought
myself one of those.
yeah, I bought this rescue charger, and then sure enough, it comes in, but then I don't have the high voltage adapters for the car, so then I got to order it through Rotunda, and then I forgot to order the low voltage adapter cables, and it's just been a pain in my ass. But these EV cars I mean, the shops that have not died out yet,
Yeah.
they are gonna disappear with all this stuff, man.
Yep. I think that's the next. That's one of my focuses is to learn up on that stuff now and get what tooling I need and understanding of what I need. And I have a one shop I recently got connected with where they've got the same mindset. They're trying to capture the hybrid EV market in our area. And they've got a ton of Priuses and Camrys and Leafs and all this stuff coming in. And so they're calling me in for some diagnosis. And like I've been to a lot of classes over the years, but only worked on a handful. Like I just don't see it that often. And so now I'm diving in like almost every other day. I'm working on another one, but I like it because I'm like, okay, I can actually get fluent with these things and, like really get my head around everything that I need to know.
Yeah.
But so the shop had a Prius actually recently, similar situation. These Priuses, when the engine won't start for whatever reason, it's out of gas, right?
Yeah.
It'll crank and it sounds like it's running.
It's running,
right?
yeah.
It's cranking so fast, but if you watch the state of charge, you can just see it's just dropping every time on the high voltage battery, and there's code setting in the engine computer. But anyways, they did it and they went, and then eventually the high voltage and doing it. So we were talking, and I think they're working on getting it charged. But he was like looking at something up on YouTube. He's like, well, you can tow it and get it in this like brake regen mode, and it'll bring the high voltage battery back. I have no clue if that would actually work or not, but
It's wild. Man.
if it was my own car, I would 100% try it.
Yeah. Like I said, man, I'm a huge fan of training and keeping up with everything. But at the end of the day, the only real way you're going to learn fucking around and finding it out.
Yep. We'll strap that thing up to the back of my truck with a tow strap. I'll ride the brakes, and we'll have that battery charged in no time.
Yeah. Diving in is the real, to me, that's how you really learn. It's to do it, get it in front of you. You'll know the theory behind it. You got the service information, you got the tooling required, but once you get into it and start doing it, to me, that's like the best learning experience and the best school there is.
Yeah. Well, you can't, nobody can predict exactly how these things are going to fail or how they act when they fail, and all these systems and different things. And so you've got to experience it. You got to see it, and you got to say, oh yeah, it does this when this is a problem. And that, yeah, like you say, just doing it, living it, experiencing it, that's where it's at. That's where you really become, you really get good at this craft. Cool, man. You got anything else for me before we wrap this up?
No, man. I mean, like I said, I'm not a very interesting person. Although you guys wanted to do a podcast,
I think differently.
Like, come on. You guys got there's so many interesting people out in this industry. Like I don't know. There's not. I just go to work every day. I like working on these cars, and I just do it. I mean, who knows what the future holds.
Lots of broken cars. I know that.
Lots of cars and lots of angry customers. The customers make this industry a nightmare. That's the one thing I hate about this industry is the customers behind the owners behind the vehicles. Man, it's very like depressing.
Mm-hmm.
You go home at the end of the day, it's not even the cars anymore that beat you. I was like I'm a shop owner, but I'm still a technician. I feel like I get hit both ways. I know eventually one day I'll have to leave the hands-on portion and kind of I guess focus on the business. I don't know. I really don't want to because I got my wife and my team that helps out there. I love working on the cars, but when I go home, I feel like you got those pain in the ass cars that beat you down there in the day, and then you got shop owner stuff that with customers who are just you're getting beat by every which way. People fucking suck.
Yeah, that is one thing about doing the mobile gig that I enjoy immensely is dealing directly with shop owners and techs almost exclusively, like very uncommonly am I dealing with directly with a customer of the vehicle. But, you know, not to say there aren't assholes out there. Of course there are.
Yeah.
I generally don't answer the phone calls going forward, but for the majority of it, the owners, the techs that are doing it, they get it. We all
Yeah.
understand what we're trying to do here. We all understand how much these cars suck. And so I have, not to rub it in or anything, but I have really enjoyed just being on that side of things and just dealing with the people fixing the cars, you know?
Yeah, it's so much easier when you're dealing with somebody who knows the industry and kind of goes through what you go through.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I hate sending stuff to the dealerships and having to go to the dealership, because you're dealing with the front counter of a dealership. And I'm not here to talk about any dealership or anything like that, but the service departments at dealerships are the worst, man. They're the worst. It's just terrible. You've got a lot of unknowledgeable service advisors out there that are in these dealerships that make life miserable. They make the industry look bad because they're just, you see estimates that are drawn up by these dealerships, and they come your way and you're just like, good God, and
Mm-hmm.
these people buy into that because they're the dealerships.
Yeah.
They know better than everybody. Um, it's terrible. Like sometimes when we need something done on a vehicle, like something for warranty or something, we have to, again, I hate talking bad about certain things, but a lot of these people just make it so hard in the industry that they've got people that are unknowledgeable. It just makes it terrible. And if you could just talk to like the technician, it'd be so much easier. There should be like an unwritten rule somewhere that's like technicians are allowed to talk to other technicians,
Yeah.
bypass service advisors or something like that. But yeah, I agree with you, man. If it's funny because my manager says all the time, he's like, man, I hate retail work. If we could just do wholesale, we would do wholesale. But again, there's a lot of money to be made in retail, so it's a double-edged sword.
Yep.
People are terrible, absolutely terrible. They wear you down and make you depressed and want to make you go in a corner and cry sometimes.
Yeah. That sucks. Yeah, no, I remember from my time at Firestone, and even then I wasn't, I was a tech and we had upfront people, but so often, hey, come talk to Sean because, I can explain it better than the guy up front. And yeah, again, it's not everybody. There's good people out there, but man, there's just a lot of not nice people out there, and they're looking to take it out on somebody, and and they're spending money, right? Their mode of transportation is broken. They're spending money, and so if they're already a crabby person, they're going to be even more crabby now. So
Yeah, and I get it. I always try to put myself in the customer's shoes, to try to understand where they're coming from, and we try our best, but nobody ever wants to put themselves in your shoes and what you're doing, when you're trying to explain to people. We'll try to understand your side, try to understand where we're coming from too. And some people just, I don't know, man, this world's a crazy, crazy world right now.
yeah, there was a couple times as a tech, like you'd have somebody like literally screaming at you, and I'm sure as a shop owner, you probably experienced it a ton. And I always thought in those times, I'm like, man, I've never, maybe it's just my demeanor, but I've never gone into a business and like screamed at someone, especially like not the owner. And I don't know that I ever would. Like I've been upset, and I've say, had issues with businesses, but to come in and like scream at somebody, it's just, it's a different kind of mindset, I guess. I don't know, but like mobile, I haven't dealt with that, right? Like, yeah, some disputes with some people a little bit here and there, but it's all been fairly calm on that side of things, which I like.
Yeah, but I've been pondering jumping into, or at least adding the mobile to the business also, because I've had a lot of requests, man. People are just like, oh, you don't
Yeah,
do mobile,
you must get a
can't
lot of
come out.
work from other shops too, huh?
Yeah, we get a lot of work from other shops, all the local shops that, just kind of get themselves into pickle or need something done. So lots of people ask, oh, can't you come out and do this? Can't you come out and do that? I'm like, oh man, I really don't have the resources. I don't have the capability, but that thought has been in my mind for some time now to kind of equip myself and equip a van to be able to offer that, because it would keep me busy. enough. We've had lots of requests, lots of requests. So
Hmm.
I don't know, something to think about, something to add.
Yeah.
We'll see how it goes.
There's always
But
that next
again,
thing.
finding the right person to put in there is what's extremely hard.
Yes, 100%. I just hired a guy in February and super, super lucky to have him. He's been excellent for doing the mobile thing out on his own with his own van, which is just not something that everybody can tackle. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, hey, really appreciate you spending some time with me this evening, and it was really great to meet you.
Yeah, absolutely, Sean, man. I wish I was a more interesting person.
Like I
I'm
said,
not, dude.
I think differently. So I
Yeah,
enjoyed your story.
yeah. I was, like I said, I was telling Daryl today, I was like, man, I don't know what I'm gonna tell him. I'm the most boring person in the world. I go home and watch Seinfeld at night, and
All right, that's going to do it for today's episode. Big thank you to Julio for spending the time with me this evening. Really great to get to meet him and hear his story. Also want to thank everybody out there for listening to the show and all the feedback that I've been getting. Always appreciate that. But with that all out of the way, let's get out there, start fixing the world one car at a time.